All right, we're back again for another week of the Pure Drive podcast. This week, it's just Brian and myself. We got the Brian Show.
Brian Show. No guest today.
No guest today. So we're going to chop it up a little bit. We got a few things to talk about. First things first, Brian just got certified to be a club fitter here at Pure Drive.
Cool.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited. It's a new journey. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, what about the kind of the certification process and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I've been working here for a while now. So obviously I've picked up a lot of things about just different all the different brands we have and all the different clubs that we offer and certain things that influence why certain players should be in certain clubs. So I've kind of learned just a lot of that throughout just my years here.
Yeah.
Once I told Adam I was interested in it, he had me. I went through the Ping Academy. They had a really good club fitting process, so he had me take all those tests there. So I did all that, and then shadowed Chris Wells and Robbie, who are our fitters here. Robbie's going back to his club now, so he's done fitting. So I watched some of their fittings. Me and Adam went through some test fittings. I fit a couple of my friends. I fit Max here for a new driver.
Nice. Working well so far. And just kind of did. Yeah, me and Adam did, like I said, a couple test fittings, and then got the green light. So we'll get going this Friday. It's exciting, man. That's great. So here at Pure Drive, we carry a bunch of different manufacturers. We have Titleist, TaylorMade, Mizuno, Callaway, Ping now as well. Which is great. Ping's our newest one. And I want to talk a little bit about, actually first let's talk about, you had wanted to ask me a little bit about my new GTS driver.
Yes.
I've played 3 or 4 rounds with it now, and it has been fantastic so far. So a couple things that I've noticed. Something is more due to the fitting, but the fitter I had was Adam Shillman. He thought that I should add a little bit more weight to the back of the driver. So before I played the GT3, which only had a front weight. Now the GTS has a front and a back weight. So he added 5 extra grams of weight to the back of the driver. And what I've noticed is an extreme increase in height, which is pretty crazy. But also something I've noticed that maybe isn't due to the fitting, but more to the driver head itself, is off-center contacts just pretty much go straight. That's which is kind of cool.
We're going to get more into that later. Yeah. It's good for you.
Yeah, so if you toe it a little bit or heel it a little bit, basically it seems to have just totally removed any curvature on it, where it might start a little right or a little bit left, but it basically just flies dead straight, which is kind of cool. So far, so good with the GTS. I'm very excited to continue to use that and continue to test it, but it's been great so far.
I'm surprised to hear you need that back weight. Not need, but it helps you out.
So I tend to not put a lot of spin on the ball. Because I hit up on it and how I deliver the club. I'm someone who tends to have low spin with my longer clubs. And so I always have the height because of my speed. But I'm always looking for ways to increase my spin. So, for example, I play a 9-degree driver, but I have it lofted up to 975, which is arguably for my swing speed a pretty high loft. And then now with the added back weight, I'm getting pretty consistently in the 2,500 or so spin rates, which is maybe a little bit high, but I would rather my spin be slightly high rather than slightly low, just because having that increased spin with the driver will help a miss hit, or if I tend to fade it or whatever, it tends to stay in play a little bit better rather than with the super low spin where it can just kind of knuckle and sort of go anywhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's been great so far. So with the new GTS models, they all have a front and back weight, which I think is fantastic. So if you have a model that suits your eye better or tends to fit you a little bit better, you can continue to adjust it with those weights to increase or decrease your height and spin.
Yeah, so you can have the look of like the GTS 3, which is like a little more of a player's model, but have the height of like the GT1, which is like a high launching
100%.
driver, which is basically what you're saying you have. So
100%. Like I will say, arguably it's going too high. Like you'll see, we're playing together on Wednesday. There's a couple drives where I've hit where I swear I've reached close to 200-foot apex, which is pretty crazy. But I've also hit some drives like downwind. I've hit some absolute nukes, which has been kind of cool.
That's good. Yeah, so we got all the new models in. They came in last week. So if you want to get fit or just try them out, come by.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying great things about them.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with these. So let's talk a little bit about irons and the current state of the iron market. There's a couple questions that I want to answer first. One, and we can go through these together, is just the difference between a cast and a forged iron. So you hear that a lot. A lot of people just assume a forged iron is a better player's iron and a cast iron is a worse player's iron, where sometimes people even think it's like a handicap requirement where you have to get below, a 7 handicap if you want to play something forged. That's not necessarily true. And so first things first, I just want to go over basically the process that is how they make these irons essentially. And so for a cast iron, basically it's a stainless steel alloy that they melt down and pour into a cast of the club. And so this allows for them to create some different shapes, make it more hollow if they want to. They can put two separate cast pieces together. And so it allows for a little bit more freedom in the design process, where you'll see the cast irons will tend to have much different shapes, a lot more perimeter weighting. You'll tend to see them add tungsten in different areas. It basically tends to allow for these manufacturers to adjust the forgiveness and the height on the irons by moving that weight around. Versus a forged iron is basically a billet of, carbon steel, which is then super heated and pressed by like thousands of tons, this big press, and it basically presses this billet of steel into the shape of the iron. And because of this process, the shaping of the iron, although it can be pretty well adjusted, it tends to be fairly similar across the manufacturers, where mostly you'll see the forged irons will be something like a blade or just a subtle cavity back, compared to the cast irons, which you might see something that is a little bit bigger, that has more perimeter weighting and things like that. So although it's not just for good players play forged, not so good players play cast, basically it's just that manufacturing process allows for a little bit more play with the weight on the cast models. And so something that I've seen kind of across the board with these manufacturers is the cast models, or the more forgiving models, have tended to get pretty strong.
Very strong. In
the lofts. Yeah. And especially nowadays with the new golf balls and how they work, they tend to have a much lower spin than what they used to. I've been seeing a lot more players that are tending to hit the ball too low with not enough spin with their irons, as I'm sure you're going to start seeing as you get into more fitting. Yeah. And so every manufacturer will have a line of irons, and they kind of go from what might be considered like a super game improvement iron. If you almost think of like a hybrid style iron, that would be considered a super game improvement, all the way down to a blade. And so as you move through that process or through that lineup, you'll see the lofts tend to get stronger and stronger as you work towards that super game improvement. And so just using Titleist here for an example, I have all the 7-iron lofts.
Yep.
So let's just go through them first. So first is Titleist's game improvement iron, which is the T350, which is 29 degrees of loft. It's pretty strong.
It's pretty strong.
Pretty strong. Then you have the player's distance iron, which is something like a T250. Think of kind of like a hollow body. Almost looks like a blade, but there's a lot more tech inside it. That one is 30.5 degrees of loft, which is also pretty strong. Now, I will say, because of how these irons are designed, they do tend to launch a little bit higher. So even though they are super strong lofted, they still can get some pretty good launch. But anytime you strengthen that loft up, you are going to lose some spin.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think a lot of people tend to struggle with that. Then next, which the one that is my favorite iron in the Titleist lineup, is the T250 launch spec.
Yeah.
So it's the T250. It has a little star next to the 250. That is a 35 degree 7-iron. So it's the same, literally the same head as the T250. It is just essentially 5 degrees weaker.
Yeah.
And so for players that need a little bit of help on off-center hits, but need the height and spin of a traditionally lofted iron, it's a really, really good mix of those two.
That's a great. I think more companies need to start doing that.
Yeah. Like you'll see Mizuno has their HL model now, so it's sort of same idea. It's like a little bit of an improvement iron, but with a weaker loft. I think more manufacturers need to be making these weaker lofted forgiving irons. Next then is I would call like a player's cavity back. If you think of a T100, T150, for example, the T100 is a 33-degree 7-iron, and the T150 is a 32-degree 7-iron, which is closer to traditional loft.
Yeah.
And then finally are the 620 models, which are the players models, which is the 620 CB, which is 35 degrees aloft, and the 620 MB, which is their blade, which is also 35 degrees aloft. So the cool thing about the 250 launch spec is it's literally the same loft as their blade, but just a little bit more forgiving. But now I want to get into why I think this is more of a problem. A trend I've seen is players or golfers think that because they are a higher handicap, they need to use something that is a game improvement model. And so they'll just tend to go and buy a set of irons online or off the rack that's game improvement that should fit their game. But if they are a player who struggles with swing speed or struggles with height and spin already, they get these player improvement models and then they just don't hit it high enough.
Yeah.
And so they're essentially getting 15 plus yards of roll on a 7-iron. Their descent angle is super low.
Like 40, you'll see like 40, even high 30s.
Yeah. And so when you go into a fitting, what a good fitter will do is obviously they'll have you test your own iron first to get some baseline data. But they will look at your spin rate. They will look at your descent angle. And obviously they'll look at the ball flight, try and adjust that as needed. But those are, would you say, probably the two most important things?
Yeah, I would say so.
And
something that's going to spin it out to hold the green and land correctly. So 45 is kind of like the number. You want to be higher than a 45-degree land angle.
Yeah.
And we're ideally trying to get to close to 50.
Totally. And so what are some things that could influence that land angle?
Say, well, the launch, obviously. Launch angle.
Totally.
Spin. And your speed.
Yeah.
The faster you swing, ideally the higher the ball is going to go.
Totally. So let's say, for example, we have a player who's swinging 75 miles an hour with a 7-iron, which is fairly common, maybe a little slow, but in any case, if you were to put this player in something like a T350 at 75 miles an hour, I would say there is unless they are someone who tends to add loft and impact, which is a potential, I would say it is almost impossible for this player to get their land angle to the appropriate number.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so you'll see a player who's swinging 75, unless they have a really good short game, they're probably a above 10 handicap. And so they go, okay, I need something with a little more forgiveness. I'm going to go get this model. They get this club with 29 degrees aloft on a 7-iron, and then they just can't hit it in the air.
Yeah.
And although maybe on a TrackMan, if you look at the total number, which includes the rollout, they might get their most distance.
They'll definitely get the most distance.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a playable distance. So if you're in here and you're curious whether or not your irons fit you properly, one, come in for a fitting. But if you're trying to figure it out yourself, there's a couple things you can do. One is look at your what's called land angle on TrackMan. And ideally with something like a 7-iron, like Brian said, you want 45 or more. At minimum, honestly. And you're trying to get that number pretty much through every iron. Longer irons are tricky. That's where hybrids can become more helpful to help that land angle hybrid or 7 wood. But through the bag, ideally you want to see if you can get that, or not up to driver, but ideally you want to see if you can get that 45-degree land angle. And then secondly, I want you to look at spin rate. Land angle is most important, but spin rate is also important. With the lofts and the way the golf balls are nowadays, the old algorithm for spin rate was the number on your iron times 1,000.
Yeah.
So 7-iron, 7,000, 6-iron, 6,000.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore. In my opinion, what it is now is the number on your iron times 1,000 minus 1,000.
Yeah.
So 7-iron, 6,000.
Yeah.
6-iron, 5, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because these golf balls don't spin as much as they used to, but the technology in the irons has allowed for an increase in launch.
Yeah.
So even with that reduced spin, because the launch is higher, the ball's still going to land soft enough. So if you're looking at those two things, land angle, ideally you want 45 or more, and then using that, your club times 1,000 minus 1,000.
Yeah, this is for a 7-iron, you're looking to hit 6,000.
Perfect. And if you can get those two things, then you're probably in the right spot. Occasionally we will see players, or maybe more than occasionally, that have super high spin rates.
Yeah.
And for them, these super strong lofted game improvement style irons can be beneficial.
Yeah.
But for a player who tends to hit it lower or just doesn't quite have the swing speed, they need something that is a little bit more lofted. So something like the launch spec can be really helpful for that. I do want to talk a little bit about how club speed itself can affect this. So if you were to give two golfers the same exact 7-iron, so same loft, same shaft, everything else, and if they were to deliver the club exactly the same, so same attack angle, same lofted impact, things like that, and one was swinging 75 miles an hour and one was swinging 90 miles an hour, basically what we'd see is the land angle would be somewhere between 5 to 8 degrees steeper on the 90 mile an hour player compared to the 75, just because that more ball speed off the face will tend to launch the ball a little bit higher. And also you'd get about 1,500 RPM more spin, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's like that's at least a club.
Yeah.
It's a club and a half.
Yeah. So for this example, just because your buddy is playing a specific set of irons that works for him, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the one that works for you. One other thing that goes along with this is we had kind of touched on it earlier. The total number on TrackMan, although it's cool to see, I would argue it basically doesn't matter.
No, it does not. I mean, maybe for driver.
Yeah. Driver, total's fine. Driver and maybe even some long irons, fine. But for 7-iron and shorter, you should be looking at the carry and the total. And ideally, you want those fairly close together.
Yeah.
Like within what, 5 yards?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. But yeah, 5 yards is probably a good number.
Yeah.
We don't need your ball to be 15 yards past the carry number. That's not going to help anybody.
Yeah. Because then when you're playing, one, if that number's really big, that probably indicates that you actually might be losing some carry. Because it does work. Carry comes from launch and spin. And so if your launch and spin are too low to where you're getting a lot of roll, you might be losing some carry.
Yeah, probably.
But then also, if you're playing and in your mind your 7-iron's 165, but it's actually carrying 150 and then rolling to 165, that can be really difficult to play.
Yeah, it's very hard to play because it has to land in the. Not every green is built the same. So
Totally.
if there's a bunker in front of the green or anything like that, then
totally
you're screwed.
Yeah, and so sometimes I will see players that think they are not good enough to play something that is a little bit weaker lofted. Because in their mind, they don't have the skill level. Maybe their handicap's not low enough to play that club, but they require something with more loft. So they need something that's technically what would be considered less forgiving, but it's not less forgiving at all. It's just a little bit of a weaker loft.
Yeah.
And so basically all of this is to say there is no handicap requirement. You could get a 2 handicap that needs something lower lofted because they are really adding loft through impact, and you could have a 15 handicap that needs something higher lofted that's technically less forgiving because they need the launch and spin.
Yeah. I think there's plenty like tour guys that play like 250 in their long irons.
Totally. Especially with these long irons. There is some forgiveness on off-center hits with those game improvement models for sure. Where if you strike one toe or heel, high or low, it's going to tend to maintain ball speed a little bit better off the face, so it'll get closer to that correct carry number, which is very helpful. But one of the bigger problems I'll see with long irons is people just not hitting it high enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Which can be really difficult.
Yeah, you see a 4-iron in the game improvement iron. It's like a driving iron basically.
Seriously,
with the steel shaft, which is going to make it really hard to hit, especially if you're a higher handicap player.
Yeah, I see it a lot. People they talk about how difficult these long irons are to hit, and then they're playing something that is extremely strong lofted.
Yeah,
it's like you're hitting a 2-iron.
Yeah, that's right, and that's where you should start looking at hybrids and woods.
Yeah, 7 woods. I mean, those have gotten so popular now.
Super popular. A lot of people like hybrids too. We have the 7 wood and the 9 wood. The takeover has come.
I mean, Fleetwood.
Yeah, Fleetwood's the most famous guy for sure to use it. He's got like 4 woods in the bag.
Seriously. And so these woods, the reason why they tend to be a little bit better for these players, one, I feel like in a wood, people are more willing to go to a graphite shaft.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is nice. A little bit of a longer shaft as well, so they get a little more club speed, which is great. But also, because the wood is bigger, the center of gravity, so where the weight is centered on the club, is much further and lower behind the face, which even if it has the same loft as something like a 5-iron, because that center of gravity is lower and further behind the face, it will launch higher. And so for someone who struggles to get the loft on these long clubs, you put something that has that center of gravity low and behind, lo and behold, the launch goes up 10 degrees, their land angle gets better, and it feels a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Which is very nice.
And especially if you're in the rough, you hit a 5-iron has 22 degrees of loft, and the rough's already going to take down some of that launch. So you put in a hybrid or wood in the bag, a little easier to get the ball in the air out of the rough. Mm-hmm. We're not playing. No one's playing in the fairway every single hole. So
100%.
Another helpful thing.
Sometimes those woods are tricky to hit out of the rough.
I will say the wood, yeah. Hybrid's probably a bit more of a rough club, you would say, than a wood. But
you'll see, in my opinion, in order like woods out of rough for a lot of players, it's just really difficult because you need a ton of speed to get that club head through it. Honestly, even long irons that are rough, you need a ton of speed to get the launch on it. I would say for most players, this is maybe a story for another day, but most players, if the rough is fairly thick, I wouldn't, unless you're someone with crazy speed, I really wouldn't be trying to hit much more than 6-iron out of it. Just hack it out.
Try and get up and down?
Try and get up and down, rather than trying to force a 4-iron or a hybrid out of there and then just, even if you make good contact, it just doesn't launch out of the rough and it just rolls forever.
It's a little knuckleball.
Yeah. Actually, now talking about that is something else that I think is important, flyers.
Yes.
So when we talk about this spin rate and why it's important with the irons, another reason why it is important is having a higher spin rate and launch angle will help you from rough, where there's a shot called a flyer. And what happens with the flyer is when you are in some rough, especially if it's a little damp, the rough gets between the club face and the golf ball. And what will happen is the golf ball will spin much less. And so because of this, you will tend to gain some distance and definitely some rollout on a flyer lie.
Yep.
And so if you're already someone who is lower spinning with the 7-iron, and then you get into the rough and the spin gets even lower, you might send one way over the green.
Yep.
Like you played some more game improvement irons up until this past year.
Yeah.
You switched now to the T100s. And I'm sure you've played a few rounds already. What have you noticed different so far?
Like those, I'm not getting those flyer balls for sure. I don't think I've hit a ball longer than green yet. So far since I've been playing with these, I've only played a couple of rounds with these irons, but you saw me like I had a lot of balls that would just fly the green last year. Yeah, and I was like, why did that happen?
100%.
Why did I just hit my 7-iron 200 yards?
100%. You get into the. Especially if you're someone with speed. Yeah. I'll say this is kind of speed dependent. If you're someone who swings a little bit slower and you get into the rough, I find the rough, it's just harder for them to get through, so they tend to not get those flyers. It might come out lower and roll more, but they just don't have the speed to get the launch. But for players who have some decent amount of club speed, if you're playing these game improvement clubs and then you get into some rough, you're going to get flyers, basically, which can be really difficult. And then also controlling distance on 3/4 shots can become tricky as well.
That was really hard.
Because anytime you take off some speed, you will also take off some spin. And so you hit a 3/4 shot with a game improvement strong lofted club, just knocks the spin down and just goes the same distance.
Yeah.
Compared to you have something with a little more loft, a little more spin under it, you hit the 3/4 shot and it actually goes the distance you're envisioning rather than just going the same number you were trying to play it.
Yeah.
So basically, I think a lot of players need more loft, essentially. It's very rare where you'll see someone hit an iron too high.
Yeah.
Well, it happens. There's people who add loft and things like that, and obviously there's really good clubs to help these players. But in my opinion, most people need more loft on their club
than the extra 5-10 yards, especially the irons.
100%. Give up the 5 yards of total to gain more control because you don't get the flyers. Get a little bit more height and then also being able to stop it on a green
Yeah.
rather than needing to run it up, I think is huge.
I agree.
Talking a little bit about some fitting stuff, I do want to talk about the difference between some shafts, because obviously that can be a little bit intimidating. There's a lot of differences when it comes into, let's just talk about iron shafts right now, but there's a lot of differences that come into shafts. And let's say you go on the Titleist website, you're going to go buy a set of irons, and you scroll through the shafts, there's what, 40 options probably?
Yeah, probably something like that.
And it can be very intimidating. So what are some of the most important things on the when it comes to iron shafts?
Well, the weight, obviously, the stiffness, and kick point, which is probably something a lot of people don't know about.
Totally.
So I'd say those are probably the big three.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So weight with irons, it'll tend to range from somewhere around 70 grams at the lightest. You might be able to find something lighter, but that's tricky to find.
With the graphite, you can get lower, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true too. There's graphite and steel with these iron shafts. In general, graphite shafts can be lighter than steel compared to steel, which almost always will be slightly heavier than graphite.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can find the same weight in a graphite and a steel shaft as well. They'll maybe just have some different bend profiles or something like that. But somewhere around 60 grams is about as light as you can go. Somewhere around 130 is about as heavy as you can go. As a general rule of thumb, a lighter shaft is going to go a little bit higher, and a heavier shaft is going to go a little bit lower. That's kind of step one. Then there's flex. And so flex can go all the way from A flex, which is kind of the lightest, most flexible, up to a TX flex, which is one step above an X flex. And that will tend to go alongside your club speed, essentially. But there are a couple differences with that. Players who swing a little bit slower need something closer to an A. Players who swing faster, really fast, you need something like a TX. But not always, though. There's the way you deliver the club, how you transition, how aggressive your transition is, can affect that as well.
Yeah.
Where sometimes you'll see a player who swings slowly, so they think they need something very light and very flexible, but they have an aggressive transition.
Yeah.
And so for someone like that, they actually might need something a little bit heavier and a little bit stiffer than what they might expect in order to get the consistency.
Yeah.
Because if you have a super aggressive transition and something's too light in your hands, it can tend to bend and droop in different ways that you might not expect and give you some weird ball flights.
Yeah.
And then opposite side, if you're someone who has a lot of club speed, you have a really smooth transition, you may not need something super heavy, super stiff.
Yeah.
And this is something that, over my years and testing a bunch of different clubs, even myself, you'll see not everyone fits into that, okay, you swing slowly, you need this. You swing fast, you need this, which is what a lot of people think.
Yeah. It's a good starting point. It's like, this guy swings 92 miles an hour with the 7-iron. He would fit into probably an extra stiff profile, but like you said, maybe he has a smooth transition, or he just likes something a little lighter, then you put him in a stiff. It'd be okay.
100%. And then the final thing is kick point. Basically, kick point is where the shaft bends. And so you have a lower kick point, which means the kick is closer to the club head, which is going to tend to launch the ball higher. And you have a higher kick point, which means the club is bending more towards the middle of the shaft, which is going to tend to launch the ball lower. For example, just the two that I pulled is the KBS Tour Light, which is kind of a lower kick point shaft, is going to tend to get that ball up, versus the KBS Tour C Taper, which is going to be a higher kick point, going to tend to knock off spin and knock off height. So you can put all these combinations together. So you could have if you want the forgiveness on a game improvement club that's a little bit stronger lofted, but you needed to get the height and spin, you could go strong loft with something low kick point, which can then get the launch and spin up.
Yep.
Or vice versa. You can go something weaker lofted with a super high kick point and really stiff shaft, which will tend to knock the height and spin down. And so this is where the fitting is so important, because you can't there basically is no way to properly guess what you need.
Yeah.
Like, you need to test it. And so you can't just go on TrackMan and say, okay, I swing it 82 miles an hour, that means I need a regular.
Yeah.
I hit it this high, that means I need this. Where the combination of the shaft and the head is what gives you the consistent and appropriate flight for yourself. You can't just get one or the other correct.
Yeah, I agree. That's why you should sign up for a fitting.
That's why you should sign up for a fitting. Obviously, all this stuff is true for driver as well. You know, the different weighting, where the weight is in the head is going to affect the launch. Obviously, loft is super important. I do think with drivers nowadays, they've done such a good job of knocking the spin down. Because let's face it, most golfers are hitting down and across it with driver, so they tend to spin it too high.
Yeah.
So then they've done a great job with basically all of their models on knocking the spin down. So ideally with driver, you want something around 2,500 spin between, depends on your launch and speed and whatever, but 2,500 is kind of a good benchmark. And because most players are down and across it, these manufacturers have done their job and they've gotten the spin down. But now if you're someone who is not down and across it, your spin might be too low. And so I would say there's a lot more players playing higher loft nowadays than what used to be. Like Cam Young's playing 11 right now.
That's crazy.
Right? And so just because you are, you know, the old adage is like the good golfers play 9 degrees and the bad golfers play 11. Like, that's just not true anymore.
No, definitely not. You went up this year, right? The new GTS? Did you go up to 10?
Yeah, no, so it's 9.75.
Okay.
So it's 9, and then I have it ticked up just because I like the way that looks.
Yeah.
So, again, with drivers, a combination of the appropriate head, because the different models will launch and spin a little bit differently, the appropriate shaft, and then the appropriate loft on the club itself is what's going to give you the most consistency and then also the most distance as well. Compared to just saying, okay, I swing 102 miles an hour, that means I'm stiff.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
Something that I think TaylorMade's done a really good job of is with their new line of shafts this year.
Yeah.
They have the red, white, and blue shafts, which are different kick points.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is really, really cool. They talk about it as how the player releases the club. So they have like a late release, a perfect release, and then maybe an early release. And then the different kick points will help them get in the correct launch angle. I think that's a really nice way for people to understand how kick points work.
It makes it easy too for the player and the fitter to just be like, oh, this guy's red, this guy's blue. It's a very easy and simple system.
Yeah, and they're pretty good shaft too. Like, I mean, I've had a couple players fit into them and they've been pretty good, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Which something a couple years ago, maybe a little more than a couple years ago, it was tricky to get a good shaft from a manufacturer where you almost always had to go aftermarket. And then you're paying another $200 for a shaft at least. Nowadays, a lot of these manufacturers carry really good shafts for no upcharge.
Yeah,
which is great.
I agree.
So just because a shaft is more expensive doesn't necessarily, one, that it's better for you or that it's a better shaft in general.
Yeah, do not just spend $300 on a shaft without testing it. If you want to and it fits you, go for it. But.
Yeah, like there's no, and then, you know, online fittings, you know, put in your club speed, put in your distance.
Yeah.
You know, it can get you maybe pretty close, but because of all the different things we just talked about, you know, you might not fit into whatever it gives you.
Yeah.
So getting fit, I would say, is the most important thing.
It's a good baseline, but not
good baseline.
Maybe not the best fit.
Yeah. Yeah, so come in and see Brian for some fittings.
But
that's just a little bit of my rant on the way the club manufacturers have gone. I'm happy they're moving in the other direction and they're starting to weaken the lofts up a little bit, at least on some of these game improvement models. But I think overall they've just gotten too strong. Let's talk a little bit about some courses.
Should we go? Do you want to do the survey thing?
You want to do the survey?
We are a little low on time.
Yeah. So let's do the survey. So this past week on the 22nd, golf.com basically leaked a survey that the PGA Tour sent to all of its members. And I'm curious to hear your answers on these. We're going to run through some of them. The first question, what skill should be tested more on the PGA Tour than it currently is?
I think it's always approach play. But I guess all the options you listed here. So short iron, wedges, shot shaping, accuracy, long iron, putting, driving distance, scrambling. So I don't need to see more short iron and wedges. That's basically all we see on the PGA Tour nowadays. So I would say long iron approach and shot shaping.
Yeah.
So which kind of go hand in hand, I think.
Yeah, long iron approach, I think, is top priority.
When I'm watching golf, that's the number one thing I want to see is guys hit approach shots.
Yeah, I want to see him hit a 5-iron into a green instead of a 58 degree.
Yeah, and especially now when you get the tracer on track, like when you're watching the broadcast, you get to see the shape of the shot.
Yeah,
and you can kind of, as it's in the air, you can kind of guess, it's like, oh, that looks good.
Right, like think of Rory's first Masters win. Yeah. What's the most memorable shot aside from the wedge he hit in the water? It's I know it was a 7-iron, but Rory's got so much speed.
Yeah.
But the 7-iron he shaped around the tree on the part on what was it 15?
15, yeah.
Yeah.
Also hit a huge draw, which added probably 15 yards of distance.
Yeah. So that's the more memorable shot. You don't remember, unless a player holds it out, you don't remember them hitting a 60-yard wedge to 5 feet.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool shot, but like that's not fun.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think long iron approach is something that needs to be tested more. Next is what had the most impact on driving distance in the last 10 years. Drivers, golf ball, golf course, gym training and speed training, or other.
It's probably a mix of everything. That's probably the correct answer.
But what had the most?
I think it's the off-center driver strikes. So I would say the drivers.
I think it's drivers.
Yeah. It's the lack of need to hit the center of the face.
Totally. I just said at the start. Yeah. On the GTS, I can hit it anywhere on the face and it goes straight. So what's that going to incentivize me to do?
Yeah.
Swing faster.
So, yeah. Which is what the PGA Tour, which all the tour guys have done.
Yeah. They know that there's no penalty, partly because of the courses they play, which also goes into this.
Yeah.
Because there tends to not be much penalty on bad drives. But if you were to hit one off center, you might lose 5 yards, but it's going to find the fairway or stay in play.
Yeah.
So you'd rather swing an extra 5 miles an hour. So when you do hit it good, you hit it 15 yards further. And so something that I think needs to be done is I think I don't want to, this is another rant I could have. I think they need to remove or reduce the bulge and roll on the driver face.
Yeah, you mentioned this a lot off air.
Off air. I know. This is Mike Wan hit me up. I think they're looking at the wrong thing when they're looking at the golf ball.
I agree.
I think what needs to be done is basically bulge and roll is the curvature on a driver face. And what that allows for is when you strike it off center, the ball will start a little left or a little right, depending on where you hit it, and then curve back to the middle. If you were to flatten the face of a driver and you hit it off center, let's say you hit it on the toe, for example, it would be a low snipe hook. And if you hit it off the heel, it would be this super right cut. And so compared to with the bulge and roll, if you hit it off the toe, it looks basically just like a high draw.
Yeah.
So I think they need to get rid of it, or at least reduce it, because then off-center strikes are more penalizing, which one would add a little bit more volatility on weekends.
Oh, yeah.
So, Wyndham doesn't shoot a 60. And then also it would de-incentivize players from swinging so fast.
Yeah. It would put more of an emphasis on fairway hitting.
Yeah, 100%. And middle strikes.
Oh, middle strikes, really, yeah. Not necessarily, just hitting the middle of the face.
Yeah.
And which guys would swing slower and give them longer shots in.
100%. I think it solves the problem. Yeah, Mike Wan hit me up. Is driver distance a problem on the PGA Tour? Yes. Keep it how it is. Not at all. And it should be allowed to increase.
Yeah, this is kind of where I think it's the same as we need the off-center strikes. If a guy hits on center and he hits it 350, then he probably deserves it. It's the toe strikes that still have 185 miles per hour ball speed.
I kind of agree with that. I don't think the out of the middle perfect shots are the problem. I think it's the mishits that are going too far. Yeah. If your mishits going 320, you got a problem.
Yeah, definitely, which is what's happening.
Yeah. So I'm fine with keeping it how it is.
I mean, Cam Young kind of disproved the rollback.
So that was one of the questions. Have you tested any prototype golf balls expected to conform under the new conditions? Yeah. And Cam Young's golf ball, a lot of people don't know this, is actually conforming to the new golf ball rollback.
And he hit, what was that drive of the players?
375.
375.
Yeah, I saw it in person. It was crazy. And then now going into, we kind of went over this already. If driving distance were to be reduced or maintained, what should be the avenue to achieve this? Golf ball, golf course, driver, or other?
probably the driver, like we said, right?
I think it's the driver.
Yeah.
They're looking at the golf ball. They're making that reduction. I don't think it's the right answer. I don't think there's going to be a big enough influence. I don't think it's going to reduce the driving distance enough really to make any difference for these tour players.
I agree.
And I don't think it's going to achieve what we want. They're just going to hit the fairway still, and instead of it going 319, it'll go 310.
Yeah, I think for the average viewer, I don't think it's going to change a lot.
It's not going to change a lot. Versus if you made off-center strikes go crazy, I think that'd be a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah, that would be fun. I would love to see some of those ball flights.
Yeah. So
Bryson toes one and it goes 100 yards left.
Yeah, because you would also, because of the spin and everything with the loss in gear effect, I think it would be, the misses would be comically bad.
Yeah.
And to the point where it would make it more interesting to watch.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it seems like the PGA Tour is checking with all their members. It seems to me like they're going to come up with their own rule system. I don't think they're going to abide by the USGA's ball rollback if it does come out. And I think they're going to come up with their own rule system, and they're just going to let them run amok, keep shooting 30 under. Because, these guys are pampered.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, do we have odds this week or anything?
I can pull them up. I want to mention one thing. We're going to talk about some golf courses today. We didn't run out of time. We added some of this stuff in late. But Brian is working on his Dream 18 of Massachusetts golf courses. Got the idea from Tron Carter, no laying up. He made his Dream 18. So we're going to do Massachusetts courses, right?
Yeah.
He's going to pick his favorite holes 1 through 18. It has to be like that specific hole.
Yes. Yep. So you have 18 golf courses, 1 hole from each course, but it has to look, if I choose, for example, the 18th hole at Essex, that has to be the 18th hole on my Dream 18.
Yeah. And only 1 hole per course.
Only 1 hole per course. And I'm doing Massachusetts courses only. I've been lucky to play some cool ones, so I think it'll be a fun little project.
So we'll be coming up in the next few weeks probably.
Yeah.
So last week we kind of mentioned the TBC Craig Ranch, that course.
I didn't watch a second.
I didn't. I watched a little bit on Sunday at the end.
They put $25 million into that course, and it did nothing.
Did not get any harder. The cut was 6 under.
It's disgusting.
That's like it's worse than the winner being 30 under. Yeah. But believe it or not, we all 3 of us hit our picks.
Oh.
Me and Adam both hit the top. I had Rico Hoey.
Okay.
Oh, and you had Spieth. So we both hit top 20, so that's a point.
Okay.
And Adam hit Sanjay Yam and finished in the top 10.
Okay, so that's
3. So
all right.
We all hit.
So what's the point? I have 6, you have 1, Adam has 3.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. So we're trending. Colonial this week, some okay field, not terrible. I got odds here if you want to look at them. I've got the DraftKings odds up. Ludwig is the favorite, followed by Russell Henley, Bob McIntyre, Ricky Fowler, and JT. Ben Griffin won this tournament last year. So, I mean, they play it every year. This course definitely tends to play a little harder. So it won't be such a birdie fest. I think Ben Griffin won like 10 under last year. So I don't know if it's anyone that's catching your eye.
Yeah, Alex Smalley.
Yeah.
I would say I'm picking Alex Smalley. I think he
35-1.
Yeah, he had a tough finish at the PGA, but he's playing well.
He had like a couple birdies at the end. He shot I think he ended up shooting like 1 under for the day.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, or he maybe back to even. He still finished, second or third in the tournament. So for him, that's obviously unbelievable. He was obviously 2-shot lead going into it, but he wasn't catching Aaron Rai that day.
No.
I'm gonna pick JJ Spawn. Quietly been playing. I shouldn't even say quietly. He won a tournament about a month ago.
Yeah.
He's been playing some good golf. Iron play has been really good. And this is more of a accuracy course as opposed to a driver bombing anywhere. So I like that and kind of hitting the fairway, hit some short approach shots. I like JJ Spawn this week.
It's great. Love it.
All right.
All right. Anything else?
I think that does it. Yeah. We'll
congrats to Wyndham. Good job.
Yeah. I'm not my favorite golfer. I think the prototype of the guy that doesn't hit it on the center of the face.
No. He's a good player. I just obviously out of favor after what happened at Oakmont.
Yeah, that was bad. And remember the T-Mobile thing?
Oh
he threw his clubs with it, which is his own sponsor.
Yeah.
Which is very funny.
Yeah. Obviously, great golfer. Just not my favorite guy. But good job shooting 60 to win.
60 to win.
All right, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.